A lot of you watching this are interested in disclosure. UAPs, non-human intelligence, advanced technology that may have been hidden or classified for decades. And I understand why. The idea that we are not alone, that there may be technology far beyond what we were used to, that the world might be bigger, stranger, and more interesting than we were told. This is exciting. It feels like possibility. But I want to be straight with you from the beginning. If disclosure continues, if it really moves forward, the most disruptive part will not be who is out there. It will not even be how long the government has known. The real disruption comes from what that possibility implies about energy, about scarcity, and about the world you and I already live in. Once that door is open, we aren't just talking about satisfying our curiosity anymore. We're talking about consequences and massive change. Before I go any further, let me tell you who you're listening to. My name is Jeff Morgan. I was educated as a cultural anthropologist. I'm a former Army intelligence analyst, a former private investigator, and an author. Most of my life has been spent studying systems, how they work, how they fail, and what happens to people when the rules they have been living start to change. I'm not here to hype disclosure. I'm not here to sell certainty. I'm here to talk honestly about implications because history shows that big truths, when they arrive without context, tend to cause more damage than clarity. That is the frame I want to use today. When people think about advanced technology, they usually imagine vehicles, craft in the sky, impossible maneuvers, propulsion systems that don't make sense. Uh, but vehicles aren't the real breakthrough. Energy is. Every advanced capability depends on energy, propulsion, materials, computation, automation. Energy determines what is possible, what is affordable, and what can be sustained. So if something can maneuver without wings, without exhaust, without visible fuel, then energy is not behaving the way we were taught it does. And once you start pulling on that thread, it doesn't stay in the sky for long. It runs straight through civilization. Let me slow down for this part because the term gets abused. Zero point energy is not magic. It is not free energy or perpetual motion. It is not science fiction. Modern physics already tells us that empty space is not actually empty. Even at the lowest possible energy state, which is called the quantum vacuum, there is motion, fluctuation, and pressure. Energy exists even when nothing else does. In fact, everything exists because of energy. Zero point energy is not about creating energy from nothing. It is about accessing energy that already exists everywhere. Whether we can access it or not in a practical or scalable way is a technical issue. Some think we already have. If we have, or are about to, it will change the world radically. Right now, energy scarcity shapes your life, whether you think about it or not. You work because energy is expensive. Your food costs money because energy is required to grow it, uh, process it, move it, and keep it from spoiling. Your home is tied to a grid because energy is centralized, controlled, metered, and billed. Energy scarcity is the invisible architecture underneath modern life. It determines where you live, what kind of work is available, what kind of future feels realistic. Now imagine a world where Available energy is abundant, localized, and always available, not someday, structurally. And once you have access to it, energy is no longer something you have to buy and conserve. You take it from the quantum field, and it is more abundant than anything in the universe. Here's what breaks first. Let's start with the grid. Everything about it assumes scarcity. Centralized generation, long transmission lines, meters, billing systems, taxation. If energy can be generated locally at scale, the grid does not get upgraded. It becomes obsolete. That does not just hurt utility companies. It destabilizes regulation, energy taxation, emergency authority, national planning. Governments do not just lose revenue, they lose leverage. And leverage is how modern systems maintain order. The same thing applies to transportation. Fuel scarcity shapes global trade, military logistics, and geopolitics. Entire industries exist to extract fuel, refine it, move it, and tax it. If energy density stops being a consistent, shipping costs collapse. Aviation gets redesigned from scratch. Electric vehicles stop depending on massive infrastructure. Military logistics, which are built around fuel vulnerability, change completely. Wars are fought over fuel for a reason. Remove fuel scarcity, and the global balance of power does not politely adjust. It reorganizes spontaneously, and the organizations that benefit from controlling it will be left without a purpose. This is where it gets personal. Most jobs exist because energy and material are expensive. Factories are centralized to optimize energy use. Human labor is required because automation costs energy. Scarcity forces participation. If energy becomes abundant, automation accelerates far beyond current expectations. Local manufacturing replaces global supply chains. Entire categories of work stop being economically necessary. Millions of jobs do not transition, they disappear. Not because of cruelty or greed, but because the structure of the world that required them is gone. That is not just an economic problem, that is an identity problem. What do people do without work and routine? What do they do without money? Governments have been slowing down this leap forward. This is where people usually jump to words like suppression or evil intent. That's too simple. Governments are not built to reveal destabilizing truths. They are built to preserve continuity. Zero-point energy does not threaten one industry. It, it threatens tax bases, employment structures, currency, borders, military balance. Imagine announcing tomorrow that energy is now effectively free and decentralized. Before the celebration ends, markets collapse, energy sectors implode, pension systems destabilize, governments lose revenue overnight. That is not a conspiracy, it is systems logic. Delay is not mysterious, it is structural. Here's why disclosure matters. Once people seriously consider that non-human intelligence might exist, that physics might be more complete than we were taught, and that energy constraints might not be fundamental. People stop asking if this is real. They start asking why we are not living differently. Why have we been struggling, and for whose sake? People are going to be angry. The question will not wait for proof. Belief alone destabilizes systems. Once scarcity becomes questionable, every institution built on enforced limitations becomes under pressure. The hardest part of post-scarcity is not technology. It is the realization that suffering may not have been necessary, that struggle may have been not inevitable, that entire lives may have been lived inside artificial constraints. Our minds are hardwired for scarcity thinking. That realization does not produce peace. It produces anger. That is why timing matters. That is why explanations matter. That is why perception matters. I'm not saying this to scare you or anyone. I'm saying it to be honest. Disclosure is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a very difficult transition into a new story. Zero-point energy is not just a technology. It is the line between errors. And how we handle that transition decides whether our civilization evolves or breaks. In the next video, I'm going to talk about surviving the transition to the age of post-scarcity, about how people stay grounded, adaptable, psychologically intact while old systems lose legitimacy and new ones are not fully formed yet. If you're interested in the post-disclosure world, if you think that this conversation is worth having, like and subscribe, and join me for the next video.